I can see people's thoughts. It's not a gift. It's a curse that haunts my every waking moment. At first, I thought it was a hallucination or a side effect of some medication gone wrong. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I couldn't deny the horrifying truth any longer. It began one gloomy evening as I was riding the subway home from work. The train was packed with weary commuters, their faces buried in their smartphones or lost in their thoughts. That's when it happened. I glanced at the man sitting across from me, his head buried in a tattered newspaper, and suddenly, his thoughts flooded into my mind. I hate this job. I can't stand my boss. Is this what my life has become? I recoiled in shock, stumbling back against the subway car's grimy window. The man never noticed my distress. He just continued to read, unaware that I had glimpsed the darkest corners of his mind. I tried to convince myself that it was a one-time occurrence, a trick of the light, or a momentary lapse of reason. But as days turned into weeks, I couldn't escape the truth. I could see people's thoughts, hear their deepest fears and desires as clearly as if they were speaking to me. Everywhere I went, I was bombarded with the private thoughts of those around me. At first, it was fascinating, a peek into the inner workings of the human mind. But soon, I realized the true horror of my condition. People's thoughts were not always pleasant, and some were downright sinister. As I walked down the crowded streets of the city, I could hear the thoughts of those passing by. I wonder if I could get away with stealing that woman's purse. Does anyone really care if I just disappear? I hate my husband. I wish he would just die. I couldn't escape the constant onslaught of these thoughts. It was as if I were trapped in a never-ending nightmare, surrounded by the darkest aspects of humanity. I became a recluse, afraid to venture out into the world, terrified of what I might discover about the people around me. I could no longer trust anyone, not even my closest friends and family. Their thoughts, once a source of comfort and connection, had become a torment. I sought help from doctors and therapists, but they could offer no explanation or cure. They dismissed me as delusional, a victim of my own overactive imagination. But I knew the truth. I could hear their doubts and skepticism as clearly as if they were shouting them in my face. As the days turned into months, my sanity began to unravel. I couldn't escape the constant barrage of thoughts, the never-ending chorus of despair and darkness that surrounded me. Sleep became a distant memory, and my days were filled with a constant, unrelenting dread. I had to find a way to end this nightmare, to silence the voices that haunted me day and night. But as I delved deeper into the twisted minds of those around me, I feared that I might uncover something even more horrifying: the true nature of humanity's darkest secrets. As the days wore on, my ability to see people's thoughts became increasingly uncontrollable. It wasn't just the people I saw in person. Now, even photos and videos could trigger the flood of thoughts in my mind. The world had become a minefield of relentless mental invasion, and I had become its hapless victim. One evening, while browsing the internet, I stumbled upon a video of a seemingly normal family on vacation. They were smiling, laughing, and enjoying their time together. But as I watched, the thoughts of the people in the video seeped into my mind. I wish I could strangle my wife and kids and be done with it. I gasped and slammed my laptop shut. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. The thoughts I had witnessed were those of the man in the video, the father who had been so lovingly playing with his children only moments before. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the true horror of my curse. I was privy to the darkest recesses of the human soul, the thoughts that people would never dare speak aloud. It was a glimpse into a world of depravity and despair that I could never have imagined. I tried to distance myself from the outside world, barricading myself in my apartment. But even there, I couldn't escape the incessant intrusion of thoughts. The walls around me felt like they were closing in as the cacophony of voices inside my head grew louder and more oppressive. Sleep deprived, and on the brink of madness, I began to doubt my own sanity. I couldn't distinguish between my thoughts and those of the people around me. Whose desires were these? Whose fears were these? It was an unending nightmare of mental chaos. One day, I received a visit from a childhood friend, Sarah. We hadn't seen each other in years, and I had almost forgotten what it felt like to have a genuine connection with someone. As she entered my apartment, her face lit up with a warm smile, and I was momentarily relieved. But that relief was short-lived. "I've always envied you," she thought, her smile never faltering. "You have no idea what it's like to be me." I stared at her in shock, unable to respond. I had always thought of Sarah as confident and successful, but beneath the surface, she was hiding her own demons. I had stumbled upon her secret, a gnawing self-doubt that had plagued her for years. Unable to bear the weight of her thoughts and the thoughts of countless others any longer, I collapsed to the floor, clutching my head in agony. Sarah rushed to my side, her concern genuine. "Are you okay?" she asked aloud, her eyes filled with worry. I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth, to reveal the nightmare that had become my life. Instead, I forced a weak smile and nodded, silently begging her to leave. As she left my apartment, I was left with a chilling realization. My ability to see people's thoughts was not just a curse. It was a Pandora's box of human suffering, a never-ending descent into the darkest depths of the human psyche. And I had no idea how to close it. Days turned into weeks, and my isolation deepened. I had become a hermit in my own home, afraid to venture outside, afraid to connect with anyone. The weight of the world's thoughts pressed down on me, threatening to suffocate the last shreds of my sanity. I couldn't bear the constant bombardment of thoughts any longer, so I began experimenting with ways to block them out. Earplugs, noise-canceling headphones, meditation. Nothing worked. The thoughts persisted, seeping through every barrier I erected, like a relentless tide eroding the shore. One sleepless night, in a fit of desperation, I even considered self-inflicted deafness. The idea of never hearing another person's thoughts was tempting, but the pain and permanent consequences were too great a price to pay. I had to find another solution, something that would allow me to lead a semblance of a normal life. I scoured the internet for information on similar cases, hoping to find someone who had experienced what I was going through and had found a way to cope. My search led me to a small online forum of individuals who claimed to have psychic abilities. Most were charlatans or delusional, but among them, I found a few who shared my plight. One person, who went by the username Silent Mind, caught my attention. They claimed to have developed a technique to control their ability to read thoughts. Intrigued and desperate, I reached out to Silent Mind and shared my story. To my surprise, they responded promptly, offering to meet in person. It was a risk, but at that point, I had nothing left to lose. We arranged to meet at a secluded park, far away from the prying thoughts of others. As I approached our meeting spot, I couldn't help but wonder if Silent Mind was genuine or just another person playing on my desperation. Silent Mind was waiting on a bench, their eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. They motioned for me to sit beside them, and I cautiously obliged. "I know what you're going through," they said, their voice hushed. "I've been there too." Relief washed over me as I realized I wasn't alone in this nightmare. "How did you learn to control it?" I asked, my voice trembling with hope. Silent Mind explained that they had spent years developing a mental discipline, a form of meditation that allowed them to create a mental shield to block out the thoughts of others. It required intense focus and practice, but it had given them a semblance of peace. They offered to teach me this technique, warning me that it would be difficult and painful. But I was willing to endure anything to regain control of my life. For weeks, Silent Mind guided me through the grueling process. We meditated together for hours each day, delving deep into the recesses of my mind, strengthening my mental barriers, and learning to selectively tune in and out of the thoughts of others. The process was excruciating. I relived my own trauma and witnessed the pain of others in vivid detail. But gradually, I began to gain control. The voices in my head grew quieter. The constant onslaught of thoughts lessened, and I could finally find moments of peace. As I learned to navigate my newfound abilities, I discovered that I could also use them for good. I helped people in need, offering comfort to those consumed by their own dark thoughts. It was a small glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak existence. But even as I gained control over my curse, I couldn't shake the nagging fear that there were depths of darkness in the human mind that I had yet to uncover. Silent Mind had warned me that there were secrets best left buried, and I couldn't help but wonder what horrors still lurked beneath the surface of the thoughts I had glimpsed. Despite the progress I had made, the true horror of my ability was far from over. Silent Mind continued to mentor me in the art of controlling my ability to see people's thoughts. With each passing day, I grew more adept at tuning out the cacophony of voices that had once plagued me. I was regaining my sanity and beginning to rebuild my shattered life. However, I couldn't escape the gnawing curiosity about the darkest thoughts I had encountered. Silent Mind had cautioned me about the abyss that could be found in the human mind, and I couldn't resist the urge to explore it further. I felt like an explorer venturing into the deepest, most treacherous corners of a forbidden territory. One evening, while sitting alone in my dimly lit apartment, I decided to delve deeper into the minds of those around me. I focused my newfound control, seeking out the most disturbing and hidden thoughts people carried. It was a dangerous endeavor, but I couldn't quell my morbid fascination. As I sifted through the sea of thoughts, I stumbled upon something that froze my blood. It was a man's thoughts, filled with an insatiable lust for violence and cruelty. His thoughts were a dark tapestry of sadism, a desire to inflict unspeakable suffering upon others. I recoiled in horror, my heart pounding in my chest. I had glimpsed the mind of a monster, a predator hidden in plain sight among the unsuspecting populace. I couldn't ignore what I had discovered. I had a moral obligation to act. I decided to tip off the authorities anonymously, providing them with the man's name and a description of his thoughts. I prayed they would investigate and prevent any potential harm. Days turned into weeks, and I awaited news of the investigation with bated breath. Then, one evening, a news report caught my attention. The man I had reported had been arrested for a string of gruesome murders, each crime more heinous than the last. I had helped stop a serial killer, but the weight of my knowledge haunted me. Silent Mind had warned me about the price of delving too deeply into the darkness of the human psyche, and now I understood. I had seen the unspeakable horrors that lurked within the minds of some, and I couldn't erase those images from my own mind. Guilt and despair weighed heavily on my soul. I had used my ability for good, but it had come at a cost. The knowledge of humanity's darkest secrets had scared me irreparably. I was haunted by the suffering I had witnessed, and I feared the depths to which my curiosity might lead me. Silent Mind, sensing my turmoil, urged me to find balance, to use my ability responsibly, and not succumb to the temptation of delving into the abyss. But the allure of the unknown was a constant, tormenting presence, pulling me deeper into a world of nightmares. My life had become a delicate tightrope walk between the light of hope and the abyss of despair. I had the power to make a difference, to help those in need, but I had to tread carefully, lest I lose myself in the darkness I had uncovered. The true horror of my ability was not the curse itself, but the choices I had to make to navigate it. The weight of my newfound responsibility pressed upon me like a vice, squeezing the joy from my life. I became a recluse once more, unable to escape the burden of knowing the darkest secrets of those around me. Every interaction, every glance, carried the potential for revelation, for glimpses into the abyss. Silent Mind continued to offer guidance, urging me to focus on the positive aspects of my ability, to help those who were suffering, and to find balance in my life. But the darkness I had encountered had left an indelible mark on my psyche. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was teetering on the precipice of madness. One day, as I ventured out to the park where I had first met Silent Mind, I noticed a young woman sitting alone on a bench. She looked lost, her eyes filled with sadness and despair. I couldn't resist the urge to approach her, to offer some solace in the midst of her pain. As I sat down beside her, I focused my ability, reaching out to her thoughts. What I discovered sent a chill down my spine. I can't go on like this. I need to end it all. Her thoughts were a desperate cry for help, a plea for someone to intervene. I couldn't simply walk away and leave her to her own devices, knowing the darkness that lurked within her mind. "Are you okay?" I asked gently, my heart aching for her. She looked up, startled, tears streaming down her face. "Who are you? How did you know?" I hesitated for a moment, contemplating the moral dilemma before me. But the urgency of the situation left me with no choice. "I'm someone who understands," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "I've been where you are. But there's hope. You don't have to face this alone." Over the course of our conversation, I shared my own struggles and offered her the guidance that Silent Mind had provided me. We talked for hours, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. With her permission, I contacted a mental health professional, and together we ensured that she received the help she so desperately needed. It was a small victory, a flicker of light in the darkness, but it reminded me of the power my ability held to make a positive impact. In the days that followed, I continued to reach out to those in need, offering support and guidance to those whose thoughts revealed their inner turmoil. I became a lifeline for some, a source of comfort in their darkest hours. But the more I helped others, the more I questioned my own ability to bear the weight of their suffering. Silent Mind had been right all along. My gift or curse had the potential to do great good, but it also carried the risk of consuming me. I was teetering on the edge of a precipice, a tightrope walker in a world of shadows and secrets. As I continued my journey, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to find true balance, to navigate the treacherous waters of the human mind without losing myself in the process. The true horror of my ability was not the darkness I encountered in others, but the constant battle to keep my own inner demons at bay. My life became a delicate dance between the horrors I witnessed and the glimmers of hope I offered to those in need. I knew that my ability to see people's thoughts had the power to make a difference, but it also had the potential to devour my soul. Silent Mind remained my guiding light, a mentor who had experienced the same struggles and emerged with their sanity intact. They continued to stress the importance of balance, of self-care, and of setting boundaries with the thoughts I encountered. But the allure of the unknown was a constant presence, like a siren's call, tempting me to dive deeper into the recesses of the human psyche. One day, as I wandered through a bustling city park, I noticed a homeless man sitting alone on a park bench. His clothes were tattered, his face etched with despair. I couldn't resist the urge to approach him, to offer some respite from the relentless suffering that his thoughts revealed. As I sat down beside him, I focused my ability on his thoughts, and what I discovered was a heart-wrenching tale of loss and tragedy. He had once been a successful businessman, a loving father, but a series of misfortunes had stripped him of everything he held dear. Now, he contemplated ending his own life, his thoughts filled with self-loathing and despair. I reached out to him, offering a compassionate ear and a glimmer of hope. We spoke for hours, and as our conversation unfolded, I realized that he was not beyond redemption. With the help of local shelters and support networks, we managed to get him back on his feet, giving him a second chance at life. The satisfaction of helping someone in such dire straits was undeniable, but it came at a cost. The darkness I encountered in his thoughts lingered within me, a haunting reminder of the pain he had endured. It was a reminder that the true horror of my ability was not just the secrets I unearthed in others, but the toll it took on my own psyche. As time passed, I continued to walk the tightrope between light and darkness, offering solace to those in need while wrestling with the demons of my own mind. The lines between my thoughts and theirs became increasingly blurred, and I struggled to maintain my own sense of self. Silent Mind had once told me that there were secrets best left buried, that delving too deeply into the abyss could consume me. I now understood the wisdom of those words, for I had glimpsed the darkest corners of the human soul, and they threatened to swallow me whole. I yearned for a way to find true balance, to use my ability to help others without sacrificing my own well-being. It was a constant battle, a relentless struggle, but I refused to succumb to the horrors that surrounded me. In the end, I realized that my ability was both a gift and a curse, a double-edged sword that could heal or harm. The true horror lay not in the ability itself, but in the choices I made and the demons I faced within. As I continued my journey, I held on to the hope that one day I would find a way to navigate the treacherous waters of the human mind and emerge stronger on the other side.